type the thing will like this whole thing. Oh, it lagged. Okay. I made it beautiful. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and begin. So welcome to the How to Choreograph Competitions lovely little collab clinic. I will send these Google Slides out after. There's a lot of interactive stuff, and I'll be tabbing in and out to show you guys some things. But before we begin, hi, I'm Toilet. Do a little introduction for myself. I'm Toilet, Emily Night Valley. I've been in the dressage community for like 6 years now. It's kind of crazy. However, only like 2 to 3 of those years have actually been competitive dressage. I've always done routines, but I haven't like actively competed up until recently. I own Crystal Pirates. We're the ones who are hosting this clinic. I'm also a part of Royal Regiment Dressage. I'm a leader in there. I'm also a Frosty Babe. That's my trial batch. Love them all. And yeah, I also joined a drill team, Dangerous Wildfires. It's been interesting. I joined a drill team. I didn't think I would ever do it, but here we are. Alright, so Crystal Pirates established May 12th, 2024. Woo woo! We're gonna go ahead and get into this. So first off, please put questions in the call chat. Actually, let's do the thread so that we don't spam the call chat. You guys should also have access to the thread. Oh. Hello?
Sąsiara?
Somebody's unmuted. Dun dun dun. You should.
Importante są te informacje uniwersalne.
Oh, hi Arab, your mic is unmuted. Okay, you guys should have access to the thread that you used to sign up for this clinic, so you can feel free to throw questions in there. I am setting a 1-hour timer. We did start late, however, so if you need to leave, feel free. If we have time at the end, Felix is also in here. Felix is a leader in Crystal Pirates and will try to answer some questions depending on how much time we have. So I'm gonna start a 1-hour timer. We'll just see how much we can get through. Again, I'll be setting these slides and I can like finish reading through them all and post the video to YouTube. So yeah, feel free to throw questions in the CP, score sheet breakdown, and more chat as we go along. This might be too much for next week because I'm getting over sickness, but if we don't have time to answer your question, I'll try to like personally DM you a response. But yeah, it should be pretty fun. Alright, so we're starting a 1-hour timer. Let's do this thing. So let's actually start. So this is the SSD score sheet breakdown in like choreography, lovely clinic. So we are going to begin with a beginner-friendly choreographer method. I call it the 1 + 1 = 2 method. You'll see why in a second. But this is basically if you're new to choreographing, you want to just get into the competitive scene, here's a method that can help you do that. So this method separates SSD's typical score sheet into 2 categories and 1 outcome. First, it separates it into technique, mechanics, and unity. Second, creativity, use of arena, variety, difficulty, and use of riders. And then the outcome is your theme and energy, or like the overall routine. As a new choreographer, your mind is already full of thoughts, so why not make it simpler? So, now we're going to take all of these things and break it down. So, to begin, we're going to start with that lovely technique, mechanics, and unity. This could also be understood as spacing, timing, alignment, or approach made by your riders. So we're going to break each one of these down for you all. So let's begin with technique and mechanics. So this is the aspect that includes teaching and portrayal of moves. This section is where you can get docked for nitpicky things such as alignment, transitions, small phases, etc. Some people also call phasing in the community, they call it like death whenever you like go through each other. But that can get you docked points in this category. As well, whenever you're working with technique and mechanics, especially something that can help your riders, is basically teach your riders how to ride, but also prepare them for things to go wrong. Like, you want to be like, all of these things are going to go wrong, here's how you overcome it. So, for example, I just threw an example in here. You might overlap here, so feel free to wiggle or curve like this. So that's what technique and mechanics is. It's the lovely, lovely thing about teaching your riders and then putting them in the arena, teaching them a competitive routine or just a routine in general, prepare them, and especially prepare them for things to go wrong. Oh, there's my mouse, lovely. All right, now we're going to move on to Unity. Okay, this is personally my favorite thing. That's probably because I'm just an extra extrovert, as Felix calls me. But I love all my people. Basically, Unity. So can we, as the viewer, agree that all the riders know their spot, or does it seem like riders just learn their spot? Unity comes into play especially with mains and alternates. Alternates can make smaller mistakes, while on the other hand, mains should know their spot perfectly, or almost perfectly. So now I'm going to give you a little example of application for this. So I write in routines a lot. I also like to alt for just organizations who need help. And I've also done this in real life in cheer before, but basically I'm one of those people where like if you teach me a routine in 24 hours and then you want me to compete it the next day, I can do it. I'll try my best. But this is the part of Unity where it comes into like as a viewer, can we tell that you just taught like somebody the routine yesterday and they're making small mistakes? Or can we tell that they know the routine and they're like actively doing what they're supposed to do? Um, and then as well with Unity, something I love to do is host fun practices, or especially end practices with a fun run through. I try to do that a lot. I love fun practices. So I'm actually going to tab out and show you guys this Google Doc. So this is in the lovely Google Doc thing. I'll send these slides out after. This is a Google Doc that contains, we call them fun run-through ideas, but basically there's stuff like routines on foot, routines in first person, riders swapping parts. If you take notes, like if you have your riders take notes on a Google Doc, you can actually have them try to ride each other's parts and like read through the notes, and it's like total chaos, but it's so fun. You could also do stuff like ignore run-throughs, where you have all riders ignore each other, and then you just call the routine and see what happens. And then you could do stuff like backwards run-through, etc. So this doc, oh, there's a lovely photo. This doc will be available in the slides after. I'll send it, so you can come in here and get some more ideas. I'm gonna type back in. Okay, and then this last one, I cannot stress this enough. Give your riders breaks. So this is what we do in Crystal Pirates, so maybe this will inspire you. So basically, the duration of the competition, for example, say it was 3 months, that's how many weeks we give our riders off after the completion of a competition. Now, this can change depending on club size, how involved your riders are, if they really just want to go back to back competing, but most people typically need like a few days break at the least. But I've noticed over the years where I've competing that if you just run people in the ground doing back to back to back to back comps, eventually they're going to get tired and worn out and they're just not going to want to compete. Nevertheless, even ride in a competitive routine. So I definitely suggest giving your riders breaks and just having unity overall, especially during the breaks. If you have like a closed server, for example, I've noticed that during breaks, some people will still like jump in calls because they're used to being online at a certain time, but it's more so just bonding. And that unity really transfers over into routines. Because, like, imagine you are expected to write a routine and you don't know anybody, you don't even know their names, you don't even know anything about them. It would basically transfer through whenever you're watching. However, if you know your fellow writers, I think that it just creates such a like unbreakable bond, and you can truly tell that everybody knows what they're doing and they're having fun. And it especially makes it useful for those lovely after hour practice vibes where we're just running around screaming, having fun. Oh yeah, back to back comps, yeah. I'll say there's some people who would just be like, get me in back to back comps right now. I live, breathe, eat it up, do it. I'm the opposite. I'm like, I need at least a week break afterwards because I like take notes, I draw out my spot, I do all that stuff, and I'm like, I just need a week where I don't have to think about anything dressage wise. So again, it just differs depending on who you're talking about. But yeah, definitely give breaks. Alright, we're gonna shift on to the next thing. So this is the second part of the 1 + 1 = 2 method. So this is creativity, use of arena, variety, difficulty, and use of riders. And these are basically like unexpectedness, arena coverage, and difficulty. And these are basically the core things whenever you're choreographing. You want to think of being creative, using the arena, all that good jazz. So that's why these are grouped together. The prior stuff was more like teaching your riders, preparing them to do stuff. This is like actually getting down to the nitty gritty and like making the routine, doing all that good jazz. So we'll begin with creativity. Okay, so creativity. This is the use of original moves. To be creative in terms of SSD dressage, avoid picking moves straight from the dictionary. Instead, pick a move, change its gait, direction, and form. For example, instead of doing a combo, do a triple rhythm combo into a buddy formation. This is a Crystal Pirates modifier. Triple rhythm combo basically means you're going to do a walk curl over into a trot curl into a canter curl over. And our lovely buddy formation is whenever you have two riders side by side. Some people call it crescent. Now, whenever you're choreographing, you are most likely, some people do this, hit dead ends. So I made this lovely, lovely thing. Let's see if it will work. Aha! So this is in the slideshow. Whenever you're choreographing or trying to make a routine or a showcase, if you ever come to a dead end, you can open this wheel and spin it, and it will give you a dressage move, term, etc. to help you like get flowing onto what you could try next. So for example, if I just did a tier and I'm stuck at where to go, I don't know what to do next, I don't know if I want to split up my riders, I don't know what I want to do, I could spin this wheel, get an idea, and then maybe that would help my brain flow in a right direction. Just know that choreographing is really hard, but it's also really rewarding, and it's totally okay to ask for help. I especially like asking riders or getting a second opinion, because whenever you're choreographing alone, sometimes things repeat themselves in a way you don't really mean to do it, but it's like you're the one, like it's writing an essay. We all have writing styles. Choreographing, we all have choreographing styles. So it's totally okay if you come to a dead end, just like you're writing an essay if you don't know how to start the next paragraph. You can do things like this where you have just a little thing that you can fall back on. I also have a chat where I keep moves, and sometimes I'll just randomly go in there and be like, I don't know what to do. Let's try this move and see what happens. And you can always change it later. Nothing is ever set in stone. And that's the lovely thing about choreographing. Okay, we'll slideshow back in. So that's our lovely creativity. All right, now next, there's going to be a lot that pops up. All right, so use of arena. This is very fun. So this is simply how much of the arena you used. To use all of the arena successfully, touch all of the main quadrants and the walls. To help with this, you can draw out your routine to see how much of the space you have covered. So we have two lovely little diagrams here. In the bottom, you'll see it says 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are basically the arena separated into 4 main quadrants. This is also kind of math related. SSO dressage kind of spirals into math a little bit, which I know people hate math, but anyways. For the use of arena, basically I like to think of it as quadrants and hitting those quadrants on top of getting to the wall. And something that's helped me throughout the past years is drawing out the routine. So in the top right, you can actually see Crystal Pirates The Timeless Dance drawn out. The video is linked there if you want to go watch it, but I basically draw out each move or sequence in a different color, and sometimes I would use opacity to try things and write notes to myself. But as you can see in this routine, we stayed heavily in the upper area, like upper midline area, and we didn't actually get like the bottom midline, the like intersection between quadrant 3 and 4. So drawing out your routine can be very beneficial, and you can also help you realize if you're repeating moves. I'm taking a sip of water, hold on. This is what you get for having the flu. You have to drink water a lot. Alright, welcome back everyone. And in the timeless dance, we got 5th place out of 13. Woo woo! But yeah. You can also get a like blank PNG of the arena by just going to the RA and then going to the 4th camera view, and then you can actually go into photo mode. So yeah. Alright, we're going to move on to the next subject. Variety. Woo, woo, woo. Alright, so variety kind of overlaps with some other stuff. That's why it's in this category, but let's go into it. So variety. While you might think doing a bunch of slant moves and pinwheels will classify your routine as elite, which it does in most cases, overuse without your own creativity creates a boring routine to watch. So, as a choreographer, you have to pick and choose what you want to uplift in hopes of getting a better score. This is where knowing your rider's strengths can help. Okay, so I'm going to draw a little parallel to my IRL life here. So, I do cheer, and this might sound so random, but Star Stable Dressage and cheer are very alike, like cheerleading, the sport. Basically, with other sports like basketball and football, you have like games you can play to make your score better. With cheer and dressage, it's basically like you try to pick what you can do best, you record it, you go to the mat, you do the routine, and then you're done. So that's where it kind of differs from other sports. Um, but more specifically, you have to pick and choose what you want to uplift. So this is where, in the first section, whenever we talked about teaching your riders how to ride, knowing people's strengths and weaknesses can help you pick what kind of stuff you're doing and what things you're going to try to uplift. For example, do I want to try a really hard sequence, but do I want to lose on alignment? As a choreographer, you kind of have to think ahead about what you're going to try to do, what you can do, and stuff like that. So just make sure that you be creative, create variety, as that will make for a great routine and not such a boring routine where it's just like, oh, we're doing a pinwheel, now we're doing a slant, here's another pinwheel, now we're doing another slant, woo! And this is actually going to segue into difficulty, because you might be asking, well, how am I going to do a bunch of pinwheels and a bunch of slants and get difficulty, but also make it like with variety, which is like a weird thing to balance. So difficulty, in my opinion, to truly communicate to the judges, you can do harder things. Show off your advanced skills 2 to 3 times in your routine. You can obviously do more or less, but generally, you want to avoid a routine that is all insert dressage move here to uplift variety. So to kind of combat the two into one, creating variety with some challenging moves in mind can be a key token to upping your difficulty, and just know that persistence pays off. Whenever you go at creating a routine, again, knowing your rider's strengths and weaknesses is a good thing because you can choreograph some challenging moves, but you also want to have some, I don't want to say filler, but you do want some variety, but you also want difficulty. So again, this is where picking and choosing what score you want to advance comes into play. You can up your difficulty, but you might lose in variety. So that's why you don't want to have a routine that's like all pinwheels and all slants. It's okay to throw in some curls here and there. And especially if you're a beginner choreographer, your routines might just be, hey, we're going to trot along the wall, we're going to do a curl, now we're going to comb, and that's totally okay. We all have to start somewhere. And honestly, your first routine, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. That's like your learning phase, and it's totally okay that it's rough. You're going to grow so much. Honestly, you just have to get in the routine, get in the arena, and just do it. Even if you have to change things like 1,000 times, just get in there and do it. Trust me, if you have like a group of people that are helping you, they all want to be there and to watch you grow. And by doing a routine, they're growing in themselves. So trust me, you are not alone. Take another sip of water. Beautiful. All right, move on to the next one. Ooh, ooh. All right, use of riders. This one has a lot of riding, but it's okay. It's not scary. It's fun. So, use of riders. So, typically in dressage, you want all the riders to be a piece in a puzzle, which come together beautifully at the end or in sequences or moves. As a beginner choreographer, this might mean splitting and simply just merging, and that is totally okay. Once you get more advanced, this might mean pod work, where you split different groups to do different things. And then a tip that I found helpful whenever I started beginning choreographing, I keep saying it wrong, blah. Just remember that the middle of the arena is the high visibility zone. So this lovely diagram to the right with the like red, orange, yellow. Red is where lots of small nitpicky things are going to be picked up, and as you move out, they kind of blend in a little bit. So just make sure your riders are confident when riding amidst the center of the arena. If one person is even one step behind, it will be brutally noticeable. As well, use this understanding of the visibility zones to choreograph. If your riders struggle, you can purposely move the sequence out of the high visibility zone. So just like we did a few slides ago, knowing your rider's strengths and weaknesses can really play into where you put things in the arena. So yeah, I just always kind of like to have this in the back of my mind whenever I'm choreographing, and if we get into practice and the riders are struggling with a sequence I'm trying to teach them, I'll just be like, okay, we can totally swap this out, or I'll just put it in the like least visibility zone so that if something happens, we can fix it on the spot and it'll be totally okay. But if I can also decide maybe I want to up the difficulty, so maybe I want to do a really hard thing in the middle of the arena so the judges can really see it and truly see that we can do difficult sequences. So again, it's kind of just like picking and choosing, but as a beginner choreographer, I just suggest getting in the arena and just doing it. Once you get your feedback, you can reassess, and your next routine, you can go at it from a different angle. I lost my mouse for a second there. Oops. Okay, we're back. Right, so now theme and energy, the outcome of the 1 plus 1 equals 2. So this is like excitement when watching and meeting theme requirements. So, beginning with theme. So this aspect changes per competition, not including internationals and trainee trials. So as a choreographer, you just have to try your best to keep up with all the requirements and relay this information to your riders. What I typically do is we have a category made in the Crystal Pirates like closed server per competition. So for example, we had like R1 Frondesa Fite. I had a channel where only the HRs could see, and I basically wrote down, here's what we need to do, here's how many seconds we have to do it. So for example, for RR1, it was like, for standard division, you need a 10-second circle. So I was like, okay, I wrote that down, and then I wrote down that we had to have dots, and I basically made a checklist so that whenever we were choreographing and recording, I just always had it to look back on. And then I also relayed this information to my riders. Now you might be like, Toilet, your riders don't need to know literally everything about the routine, but honestly, I found that it works better whenever you tell your riders like everything. Like, hey, I struggled making this, let's just give it a try. Hey guys, here is the requirements for the competition. It's a little challenging, but I think we can make it work. Let's try this, let's try that. Just be truthful to yourself and to your riders, and it will all work out at the end of the day. And like I said, you can totally scrap things as you go along. If you work on a sequence and it's just not working out, it's totally okay to be like, okay, guys, we're just going to stop. We're just going to reset from the beginning. We're going to try what we had. Whenever we get here, we'll stop and we'll reassess whenever we get there. Welcome, whoever just joined. Oh, bye bye. Okay, and now we're going to go into energy. So this aspect relates to how entertaining your routine ends up being. So to have an engaging routine, I suggest changing gaits every like 30 seconds to avoid long periods of trotting. In old SSO, there's like been a shift in old SSO dressage. It was like, we're gonna trot, we're gonna split, we're gonna do this lovely thing. I called it line work. And now SSO dressage is kind of peered more towards like realism, where it's like, we want to mirror across the arena, we want to have fun gaits, we do want to have some line work, but it's also cool whenever you have a bunch of riders doing a bunch of different things, kind of like pod work. But in a lot of routines, I've noticed that if they change gaits every like 30 to 40 seconds, it really keeps my like vision on the routine and like excited to watch. And speaking of changing gaits every 30 seconds, as a new choreographer, you can also do these things that I like to call routine studies. This is basically where you make a playlist with a bunch of routines and you just literally watch them through once to like just see it, and then I watch it through again, and I literally just take notes on what they did good, like constructive criticism, good stuff, and then I could try to relate that into my own routines. So I've done a couple routine studies in my time. I do some where it's like I look at all the first place winners. I do some where it's like I'll look at like 10th place and then I'll look at like 15th place, etc., etc. Um, Metaphorically, you could do a large routine study and figure out like the overlap between all the routines and then just like repeat that. But you'd have to do like 1,000 routines or something crazy like that. But because it is Star Stable Dressage and everybody is kind of like sharing ideas in a way, there will be some overlap. Um, but I love doing routine studies and I highly recommend doing those. Okay, my recorder's still working. Woo-hoo. All right, so we're gonna get on to the summary 1+1 conclusion. So, this beginner choreographer method separates SSD's typical score sheet into two categories and one outcome: technique, mechanics, and unity, which is like how you teach your riders, how you prepare them for the routine, how you prepare them for things to go wrong; creativity, use of arena; variety, difficulty, and use of riders. That's just you putting the routine together and trying to beat all those lovely like checklist things. But again, as a beginner choreographer, that might be hard, so just try your best. And the overall outcome is the theme and energy. Again, this can change depending on the competition. Like SSD does some themed competitions, TDE does themed competitions, but stuff like training trials and internationals, which is at the end of the year, it typically doesn't have a theme, so you get to make your own, which is very fun. So the outcome is dependent on the grouped variables. If you are brand new to choreographing, I know this is cliche, but don't think, just do. Your first routine may be far from perfect, but you can grow. I'll do a little example for Crystal Pirates at least. Our first routine, we did it like we had a bunch of riders and then some of them dropped, so then we thought we weren't going to be able to compete. Some people stepped up to the plate. We taught them in like a week and we were able to submit the routine, but it was really hard. Like really hard. I thought we were going to have to like just totally back out like multiple times. I thought we were going to have to change the whole routine. So just honestly, just getting that routine done and being able to submit something was like amazing. We placed last place, which was totally okay. We started late. We had so many troubles. We placed last place, which is totally good. But we've grown a lot. And the second competition we did, we spiked up to 5th place. So really, just getting in the arena and trying something is totally okay and totally respectful, and that's totally what you're gonna have to do. And then after you've done it, you can get your feedback. You can have a meeting, and you can grow from that. All right, so now we're gonna get into top 6 tips. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I had 6. I couldn't just pick 5, so we're doing 6. And there's a lovely smile face from Crystal Pirates to you. All right, so we're gonna start with number 1, dead servers. So going to a dead server can help escape lag, especially with ignoring Global Store. Dead servers such as Cherry Island and Maple Star have been great for Crystal Pirates. On Maple Star, however, you might have trouble with the chat filter because it's actually a French server, but nobody's usually on there because of like the time difference. But it's definitely interesting trying to use the chat filter in that server. I'll just admit it. You can, however, say slay, which you cannot say on the English servers, but on French servers you could say slay, which is very inspiring to me because I love saying slay. So highly recommend dead servers. They can really help, especially with how flaky ignore can be. Like some days it'll be like, boom, you're gone, and the next day it'll be like, actually I need like 10 seconds before I disappear. I found that just like trying to escape the lag just right off the bat helps. And now we're going to go on to our second tip, touching the walls. So this kind of goes along with arena usage. But most people struggle with getting to the walls. But even if it's only for a split second, try to get to the walls. I know some people are like, well, we use the walls in practice. That's just not really something we do in competitions. But the wall is technically a part of the arena. So you do need to try to touch it. Even if it's just like a belt, even if you just turn onto the line and then do a curl comb right after, try to get to the walls. And this can also be handy for whenever you're using the like high visibility zone. If you want to try a sequence that maybe your riders struggle with, you can totally just throw them on the wall. Just have them try it on the wall. Maybe the wall will make them comfortable, because that's what they do in practice. They're on the wall. They're used to it. So yeah, definitely recommend touching the walls. And third, faster is better. Now let me explain before you get ahead of yourself. So when riders are faster, our brain locks onto them, while on the other hand, riders who walk get overshadowed, so try to use this to your benefit. So for example, if one rider is just backing up or walking and another rider is going from like the top left to the bottom right at a faster gait, our brain just like naturally locks onto them, and it can create for some really interesting sequences and like pod work where you have like for example two riders do like a DNA strand kind of shape, and other riders are just like walk curling and then walking forward, and once the two riders that did that DNA like shape, they can like run back, and it's really cool. So I highly suggest messing with gaits. And even if you're just in practice and you're just like, you know what, you're gonna do this at a walk and you're gonna do this at a canter, and then we're both gonna try it at a trot. Like messing with the gaits is really fun, especially to see how it happens. Like, I'm experienced, but even sometimes I'm like, wait, if we did this at an extended canter, what would happen metaphorically? So just give things a go. It's totally okay to mess around and practice, or just have practices where you test one sequence at different gaits. It can help your routine be better overall. Moving on to number 4, mirror, mirror on the wall. So this kind of goes along with what our brain likes. Mirroring across the arena just like naturally satisfies our brain. If you just have a bunch of people everywhere, if they, oh, Felix, if there were a billion riders in the arena, for context, we have this one person who every time we teach a dressage move, they're like, hypothetically, if there were a million riders in the arena, what would happen? And I'm like, girl, we don't have a million people. They'd be like spewing out of the arena. It's so funny though. Oh, it's so good. But going back to the fourth mirror on the wall. But mirroring is very satisfying. So whether it's you just have people, 4 riders just spread across the arena evenly doing a canter curl, it is really satisfying. Or like if they do a box cross, which is where you make like the box shape and they touch like nose to tail, but then they go onto like a diagonal. I love that stuff. I eat it up. And I've noticed like with feedback, whenever we do symmetrical stuff, it gets like higher ratings than if we had pure chaos. A good example of that is in RRD's internationals. I actually got to take over choreographing that because the original instructor had to step down sadly. And I'm a fan of pure chaos, so one day I was like, you know what? Right now, everybody pick a dressage move. Everybody's doing that move, and we're just keeping it. Everybody's gonna do a move, and we're gonna make it work. It was pure chaos. It went along with the theme of the routine, which was like FNAF and like building on fire. That's a whole nother conversation. But if it didn't have like the FNAF theme attached to it, I would have been like, I don't know why I did that because it was so bad. Like everybody was just everywhere doing their own thing. There were no pods. There were no like ones and twos. It was just pure chaos. So I definitely recommend mirroring, but it is okay to totally like do pod work. Just make sure it's controlled and not everybody doing their own thing. But that's also another way to look at a routine is like separate the theme from the routine and just watch the moves or like with no music. And if it looks good and it makes sense, then I think it's good to add into a routine. All right, so now we're going on to number 5. Watch the routine back. So some people don't do this, some people do. But don't just share the routine videos after practice. Try to actually sit in practice and give real-time feedback to your riders on what they did wrong and how they can fix it. If you just have like Windows, I think Windows and Mac have like pre-built-in recorders, or you can download stuff like OBS or Bandicam. But I found that sharing your screen, sharing the routine, and like using the little like playback thing where you can pick exactly where you want to show, like finding nitpicky things and being able to show riders what it looks like on my screen, it helps them fix it, and then we can like talk one on one in that moment and be like, hey, you were very behind here, so can you try going on pre instead of go? Can you try running instead of cantering? Stuff like that. It does take some time away from actual practice because you have to sit there and watch the video and give feedback. But honestly, instead of doing 10,000 run-throughs, I'd rather sit and watch a video and tell people what to fix instead of forcing them to just keep doing the routine and just hoping that they get it. So this kind of comes into play with the like mechanics in Unity, teaching your riders how to ride the routine. So yeah, I love watching the routine back. And it's fun because you can like take the little slide bar thing and you can just like ear, and you can watch everybody just like robotically move around the arena. Oh, so definitely recommend watching the routine back. And our last tip, tell the judges. So assume that the judges will not catch on to what you are going through or trying to portray. Always explain to the judges about your struggles and successes so they can judge you with it in mind. A good spot to mention this is in the submission form or description of the YouTube video if uploading to YouTube. So this is just depending on, for example, Crystal Pirates is a small club. We competed and we had to use the ignore feature. So we had one person doing a solo, but people were like, hey, the routine was kind of empty here. Try to do this and this. But I think some communication could have definitely fixed the confusion with what was happening. And whenever you submit routines, I believe most do it. But you can submit like a here's our routine, here's what happened, and then they have like a specific spot that says like tell us if you had like lag spikes, or tell us if your ignore feature didn't work, tell us struggles, all that kind of good jazz. So like for example for CP's RR1, we actually had some beginner writers step up to do this routine, so we put that in the like feedback commentary submission form, and the judges actually acknowledged it in the feedback, which helped us like understand where their feedback was coming for even more because they understood us, so just like a mutual understanding. So I definitely do not assume that the judges will catch on to what you're trying to portray. Definitely tell them, because again with SSD dressage everybody has like their own backgrounds going into it, so a curl to you might be like, did you do an orbit curl there, to somebody else, so just try to really nail on the head and let people know what's happening if you're trying to portray something. You don't, however, want to be like, here's a 30-page essay on my routine, because that's going to be a little too much, but definitely recommend telling the judges. All right, we're doing good on time. All right, so here's some lovely questions to get you going when choreographing. If you're a beginner, I suggest like answering these, writing them down, and this can help you if you get stuck or just need somewhere to go. So the questions are, do I want a theme or do I just want to portray something to music? Do I want this to be a challenging routine of my writer's skill level? Who should I have writing this routine? Who will make the routine? What music should I use? What words correlate to the music? Do I want to do slow or fast gates? Do I want to utilize ignore and global? And does my schedule allow me to lead a competition? I'm taking a sip of water. So starting with the first question, do I want a theme or do I just want to portray something to music? I've seen both routines that have a theme and both routines who just choreograph to music be super successful. So it's totally up to you as the person making the routine if you want to have a theme or if you just want to portray something with music. Both are good. One allows you to create like a story, which can allow the judges to really connect with your routine. One, if you're at a like hedge of like I don't know what to do, you can listen to the music and get inspired. So they both have their pros and cons. Next question: do I want this to be a challenging routine or of my writer's skill level? This is just where knowing your writers can help, so you can decide, hey, do I want to try to make a difficult routine, or do I want to keep it like on level? Sorry, let's move. Oh, hold on. Let me. Somebody's coming in. What? Green. Green. And if not, then no, I do not. Yeah. I'll open it on case. Yeah. You're welcome. Okay. Sorry, somebody came in my room asking if I had a highlighter. I had to give them a highlighter real quick. But going back into the second question, do I want this to be a challenging routine or of my writer's skill level? So this goes into difficulty and knowing your writers and just like avidly teaching them so you know what their capabilities are. For example, in Crystal Pirates, we have this one person who hates buddy formations, but they're kind of difficult to do, so we love doing them. It's just knowing your writers, knowing what they struggle with, what they're good at, can help you whenever you're putting together this routine. For example, if I know that my writers are good at comb alignment, I might throw in a little more combs than I would otherwise. Now, this next question kind of goes along with it. Who should I have ride in this routine? So, whenever a routine or competition is announced, you kind of have to decide which division am I entering into? How many riders do I need to have? Do we want alternates? I typically err on the side of if it's like a 4-person routine, but we could have 6 riders, I'd rather have 4 riders and 2 alts because you never know what is going to happen during the week of recording. I've seen like I've seen like 3 people drop the week of recording, or I've had to call in like 5 new alts like the week or like the day of and teach them a routine. So you never know what's gonna happen. So just try to be prepared. I typically do that by having mains and alts, but if you want to make a routine where it's just all mains, you could totally do that. And it's up to you. And then next, who will make the routine? So this is more so who's choreographing, or if you have a bigger club and you have instructors, you could be like, who wants to take the routine, stuff like that. And it's totally okay if you had like 2 or 3 people working on the routine. It can be very exciting whenever you have different like mindsets throwing in ideas. I will say, however, if you have multiple people helping on a routine, don't make it to where like one person choreographs a section, then another person choreographs the next section, then a third person choreographs the last section. Because if one of those choreographers is gone one day, another choreographer is gonna have to learn how you taught, how you did your part, and it just creates another layer of depth, and I just don't recommend doing that. I recommend getting everybody in a group and working on it together step by step so you all know what's happening, because if one commander gets sick the week of recording and you need somebody else to take over, it should be a little easier instead of like, oh, I don't know how to command your section because I didn't choreograph it. So I suggest definitely working together. And then what music should I use? This goes on if you're doing a theme or if you just want to portray something to music. And then what words correlate to the music? So this can be helpful whenever you reach a roadblock, whenever you're choreographing. If you have, for example, like epic battle music, you might think of words like sharp and fast and like crossing, and that could correlate into like we're gonna do some dives and slants because those are very sharp moves, or we're gonna do some bounces where you like go towards X and then you go away, stuff like that. And then do I want to do slower fast gates? This goes on with like words that correlate to the music. If I'm doing like an epic battle music thing, I might want to use faster gates instead of walking the whole time. And if I'm doing like a cutesy little like la 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 routine, I wouldn't want people just running around the arena. I kind of want to match the music. But that is up to you if you want to match the music or if you want to do like a fast sequence and then go back to matching the music. Again, totally up to you as a choreographer. Just try everything and then decide what you want to do. Do I want to utilize ignore/global store? So this is a lovely, lovely little feature, and it does take some practice. And especially if your riders haven't been introduced to it before, it can be very tricky. If they've ever been introduced to it before, you might want to like post a lesson specifically on how to do it, because it's its own like dressage thing that you have to do. Like, you have to ignore, you have to get in global store, you have to count, then you have to get out, then you have to run, then you have to unignore, and then you have to get back in global store. And if you don't teach your riders how to successfully do that, they're probably going to mess up or need a little more help later down the line. So it's better just to teach them at the beginning so that they're used to it, or you don't have to do it. A lot of people nowadays do it, or they start the routine in global store. Again, this is just the transition from like old dressage where ignore and global store wasn't ever used or a thing. But now people typically use ignore and global store. Some comps might not allow it, but you just look at the requirements and figure it out. Okay, this last question is very important. Does my schedule allow me to lead a competition? So if you are deciding like, hey, I want to choreograph, I want to get a group of people together, and I want to lead this routine, look at your schedule and decide if you actually have the time to commit to doing it. I've typically found that comp practices is like 3 to 4 times a week for an hour, or you can do like once a week for like 3 hours with breaks. But whenever it comes down to recording week, typically clubs and teams choose like a span of like either the whole week or like 4 days back to back. So just try to look at your schedule, and especially if you'll be gone. For example, whenever we were doing RR1, I had some college trips I had to go on. So Felix, the lovely Felix on this call, took over for me while I was gone, which was super, super nice to know that like we were still progressing while I was gone. But if you're the only person leading a routine and you're gone for a week, you guys will be short a week of practice. So that's just something to keep note of as you're going into making the routine. Here's a little lovely analogy. Beginning a routine, competition is like a maze. The finish line, however, is in reach. You'll get through a lot of twists and turns, but it's super fun and rewarding once it's all plopped together. Okay. Getting started. So here's another example or way you could go at choreographing. There's also a TDA podcast. If you go into the slides and click on the icon about themed routines, but that's a whole nother subject, so we'll go back. So this is another way that if you just want to get started, you can ask yourself these things. So you can pick a theme, decide to go off of music. You can find music, write down words that relate to the music. So if you get to a dead end, you can try to relate to the words. Announce the competition to your group. Assign writer spots. Draw out ideas or log in to visualize. Test ideas again. Finalize ideas. Put them all together in a coherent order, and then practice things over and over until everything connects. Okay, so I'm actually going to give you guys the CP version of this for RR1. So, pick a theme or decide to go off of music. So Crystal Pirates in the past has decided to do themes, but this time me and Felix choreographed and we decided to just go off of the music. And we decided to do the songs Snow Angels and Colors of the Wind. We did Snow Angels for winter and Colors of the Wind for spring. And then write down words that relate to the music. So we did like snow, flowy, slow, and then we really wanted to have that switch up from like slow to fast and quick and energizing and like lots of shapes. And then announce the competition to the group. We did that in our closed server. Assigned rider spots. Again, we decided on doing a routine with 4 riders and offered everybody else alternate positions. And then draw out ideas / log in to visualize. Me and Felix met in game to visualize / test ideas, but drawing can also be helpful. Then we tested it with our riders. We tested different gates and if it vibed with the music in that scene. And then we told riders confirmed ideas, and we had them update notes and fill in other riders. We had a Google Doc. We typically do this for all our routines. We have a Google Doc where people can take notes. And so that kind of enables us to do fun run-throughs where it's like, oh, you're going to ride this person's spot and you're going to ride this person's spot. But it's also helpful because if you're teaching somebody else, as a choreographer, you know all the spots in the routine, and trust me, you're going to forget a bunch of stuff. So it's helpful whenever you have notes, you can be like, oh, let me pull up the notes so I can answer that question real quick. And last minute, if somebody drops, then you have their notes and you can ride for them. And then put them together. We put everything together in a flowing order, and we gave everything a lovely, unique name. We had stuff like, we had like rotisserie chicken, diamonds are a girl's best friend. We had a lot of names like pop can. We gave everything like an interesting name so the riders would be happy to keep riding the routine and sequences, but it also helps because we could be like, go to your pop can spots. Yeah, and then, yeah, our last thing was M and Minion, M and Minion, like M&M but Minion, M and Minion. So you could be like, go to your, oh yeah, it was a lot. We had lots of interesting names. But it'd be like, go to your M and Minion spots, go to your Betty set spots, stuff like that. And then it's just helpful because it like opens up conversation for people to get closer because they're like, oh my gosh, I love whenever we do Betty. It's so like funny and fun. I love it so much. And then practice things over and over. Remember, practice makes progress, not perfect. Practice makes progress. Now we actually have a lovely video of me and Felix testing the RR1 interest in game. This was before we introduced it to the team. This was just us testing it. Thank you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I played the music in the background. I'm writing a spot, and then Felix is also writing a spot. And this is just so we could see where we ended up. 3, go. And start thing.
I'm not going to hire my own engineer.
Go.
You're going to interview my
So I'm gonna go inwards now. But yeah, let's go inwards.
well, even look at it. Or you have the final veto. Even though
just kind of
I'm in
this
charge,
bit, and then we'll start following.
I might be in charge, but you can still veto my because they found that if you're trying to hire someone, you end up just being so desperate to just do it that you just do it.
So yeah, we tested the routine a lot, and we made a lot of changes as we went. We ended up changing like the curlover direction. We changed when people did stuff. So yeah, it's totally like get in the arena, visualize stuff, test it, draw it out, test it again. It's just a lot of trial and error, honestly. But it's very fun. Okay, we're in the home stretch, guys. We're in the home stretch. Checklist. I love my checklist. Ooh, love my checklist. So we're gonna give you guys some checklists to take with you. So whenever you're choreographing, do the riders do different moves? Do they split up? Do they use different sides of the arena? Do they do the same thing over and over? Do they trot for long periods of time? Have the riders reared at all? Have they halted? Have they backed up or used the reverse? And then for recording, is it daytime? Have you muted all your notifications? Have you full screened? Have you turned up your graphics? This is kind of a call out at me because I keep my graphics all the way down so I don't lag. Have you put dots in the chat, and are you on a dead server? These are kind of things, again, that you just kind of keep in the back of your mind. Come back to it if you need help. Lots of checklists. We love our checklist. Okay. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da! We're really in the home stretch here, guys. Competition servers. I'll send out these slides as soon as we end. But Jorg Pursuit Dressage, the Dressage Empire, Dwarven Dressage Center, all are servers that host competitions, and then our open server is also listed there. Maybe in the future we'll host competitions, but there's the open server if you want to join. Da-da-da-da-da! We made it to the end! Woo woo! So again, I'll send these slides. You should be able to click on any of the photos and open up our socials. Oh yeah, that deserves golf claps. We love golf claps. This is another thing we do in CP. If you get a move right, we give you golf claps, and that's like a fake currency. Oh, but we made it to the end. That was 33 slides. Good job, everybody. That was so good. If you guys start putting questions in the CP score sheet breakdown and more, me or Felix could DM you answers. But I honestly have to go get ready for a dinner, so we'll probably conclude there. But that was our lovely, 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 lovely clinic on the SSD score sheet breakdown and how to choreograph. If you want more information or info on Crystal Pirates, we have Instagram. Feel free to come find us, stalk us, do whatever you gotta do. We just love Betty and we're so happy. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I hope you guys found it helpful, and I want to thank you guys so much for coming. So yeah, feel free to send your questions. We'd love to answer them.